Alex, just thank you so much for coming back to continue this conversation about your
No
father,
problem.
about your experiences. I've had so many DMs and messages from people from the first call, just mind blown. And I think one of the most powerful things that we're doing here is just revealing what Freemasonry is and how affected the sons, the daughters, the wives of these Freemasons have been. So I just want to say personally, thank you because it takes courage to do what you're doing.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
thank you. I think it's needed because these kind of secret societies have been working pretty much through centuries, if not for actually some of them hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years. So, and uh, being shielded by all sorts of different societies and protected as well, not only to people who are affected, like the families, but also to other people who were trying to expose them. So they're quite ruthless when it comes to protecting their own kind. So that's Jack, yes, Jack or Bride, as we call her. So
That's cute.
she's a rescue. I have to say this quickly. She has a deformed feet, so
Oh,
she wouldn't survive outside. They would just kill her. But
oh,
I found her when she was just a fledgling. So she's with
oh.
me for 1.5 years, and she's doing.
Wow.
So there you go. Now is a little moment of fame.
Oh, she's gorgeous. We'll have to get her in a med bed then, sort of thing.
Yeah. Yeah. I do hydro with her every day, so I massage her feet under some warm water just to see if I get some movement back. And she's doing really well, but unfortunately she can't perch, so she can't hold on to things, but she can fly a lot, so which is
Yeah.
great.
Wow. Wow.
By the looks of it. Fantastic. Oh,
Yes.
anyway,
So where do we start?
yeah, so the first time, Alex, obviously you what I couldn't believe, to be honest, incredible. The story, you know, your father and obviously you didn't have much to do as a child, but found out in later years his involvement, and we spoke about you being at school and everything else. But what was the thing that I thought, you know, we could probably touch upon today, and that is the artifacts.
Yeah.
You know, these artifacts that your mum and dad traveled the world. Obviously, we can only assume for ritual. Maybe we could touch on that, Alex, and pick up where we left off.
Yes. Yeah, I can tell you a little bit about it. My parents also were quite involved with a company which is quite well known. It's called Siemens AG, which is an electronics company.
Yeah.
So, and they have supported a lot of sponsored, let's say, most of the archaeological digs, especially in the areas of Turkey and Haran, and so many other areas as well. So they, it always puzzled me a little bit why they would be sponsoring archaeology in such a way. It kind of got clear to me later when I saw actually the artifacts, that there is actually a link and a connection here. So so they would have the funds to travel worldwide, and what they would do is they would go to auctions, and then they would purchase certain objects which were purchased specifically for the lodge. I have to make that clear. It wasn't for any private collectors, it was for the lodge.
Wow.
Yeah. So and there were all sorts of different objects, many of them ritualistic, because for them it was quite important to use something which has been used previously, because they contain like a blueprint.
Yeah.
And so when you use something, I can explain it for the people who don't know really what I'm talking about. When you have a specific, let's say you have your favorite cooking spoon, okay, and you use it all the time, so it takes on almost like a part of you, like a little bit of your memory. And further than that, when you have a very sensitive person, it can read this kind of memory structure which is connected to the object. So the same when you have a wand or a knife for ritualistic kind of purposes. So they would not only read this DNA, memory or the blueprint which was connected to it, it also contained a lot of the knowledge because it was used for certain rituals. So it was kind of a shortcut for them to gain more knowledge and to raise their ability to communicate with whatever kind of entity they wanted to communicate with.
So that's like doing psychometry on an item as well, as what we know in the spiritual sense, like taking the energies and doing like a reading, and so DNA.
Yes. So there are all sorts of different practices, which I heard about and I have seen, because they were quite openly talking to me about it, and they were trying to imprint my interest, of course, to draw me over to the side, to kind of say, okay, the doors are open for you, and you can be a part of this, be a member of this. I was never really intrigued by it, not because I was scared of it. I never actually was scared of them, to be honest, but it just didn't interest me. I did look into magic because, as I have a very scientific mind, I wanted to know really what the whole deal is here. Is this really working? Is this something which people just imagine? What is the truth behind it? So, and I did do some tests with other people as well, so who were kind of willingly joining me in this, under this scientific kind of status. So, and yes, there are some things connected surely to their rituals which I know of, which definitely was bearing an energy which was making me feel even uneasy. And I'm not someone who is easily to convince about spirits and such. Not saying that I don't believe in it, but I need to kind of, a little bit of proof of things. That's just my...
Just research every area, so cross it off the list.
Yes, exactly. So I have to say that some things were quite incredible. And I came across, of course, some of the old, as I call them, old masters or old magicians, which were friends of my father. And so they had certainly an incredible knowledge. Many of them were trained in a way for telekinesis. And it was just, there were more kind of people who were chosen for this, who had certain types of gifts.
Sorry to stop you there. And have you witnessed the telekinesis?
I did with one person, which was Professor Hemberger, or Dr. Klingsor, as he was known as well. He went with my friend. I at the time visited him, and I always took someone with me because I found him a little bit creepy. So, but I was very young as well, okay? So, but I went over with my friend, and she was just walking next to him. And what he did is he just touched very gently her shoulder, and she collapsed. She just collapsed next to me, and I was thinking, what the hell? What just happened? And later on, I found out that he also was trained in hypnosis. So there are some ways, of course, to what I call shock hypnosis, so which is just by sheer touch in certain places on your body, you can just put someone into a hypnosis just like that. So which is something which I kind of researched later on. But she was, of course, immediately scared of him, and I said, don't be too worried, he hasn't got a hold over you. So it's just that he's showing off his abilities. So that's what I kind of interpreted it as. So
it's interesting because to show off your abilities, if it was benevolent, you wouldn't have women dropping to the floor. So it's clearly it's a benevolent ability, and we all have access to this power, but they've hidden it from us, learned it for themselves, and are using it for Satanism. It's insane.
Yeah, absolutely. So at that time, I was still kind of finding out who are these people, so who's my father even, in that respect. So, and when I came across that there are different categories and there are different kind of groups of people. So there's some who are dedicated to Satanism. There are some which are working with demons, so which are different things. And I think you throw it all together. So, but there are different things. And some people like the Fog Lodge, which is the most notorious lodge, which I know. This one was founded 1840 in Munich by some wealthy industrialists, and they are known as a Freemasonic order. However, they are not really connected to the Freemasons, but they are definitely a gate. The Freemasons are a gateway to that kind of order, and this order has been known especially through the Second World War. So there was a guy who was called Franz Bardon, who actually, and people think that's just a story, but it's actually a true story. He was into magic and he written numerous books as well. And he had this kind of connection to this order. And Adolf Hitler supposedly was addressing him to be a member of this folk lodge because it was something he desired, because it could enhance his ability to raise his power. But they wouldn't let him in because he was too unstable and he didn't have any gifts. So that's the official story.
Wow.
And then he was arrested and put actually into a concentration camp where he either died or he disappeared. Nobody knows really what happened to him. But he managed to write a book.
Sorry.
Yes, sorry.
What was his name again?
Franz Bardon.
Bardon.
Yeah, Bardon.
Okay.
Yeah.
So Alex, you literally grew up around magic in a sense, or like you, and whether you subconsciously or consciously knew it. And being a scientist, I'm guessing that comes with some level of skepticism as well. What are you? What's your conclusion now regarding magic as a man who's understood everything that his father and the Masonic lodges do? What do you conclude now regarding the power of magic?
Okay, I try to differ between magic and things which I actually also use in my own personal work, which is alchemy. So even
Alchemy.
so, yes. So even so, there's a lot of bridging here, and many people mix the two together.
Okay.
I think you have to be very careful not to confuse one for the other. So I do now. I work a lot with megalithic sites and stone circles and ancient sites.
So like Glastonbury or Stonehenge or something like that, yeah, with ley lines, that kind of stuff.
That's right. So I try, as a scientist, I'm extremely interested in how water works with our planet, because water is totally misunderstood and probably the most misused element on our planet.
I agree.
So I was researching a lot on the tracks of my father, who was in Turkey quite a lot, and coming back to the objects which he was trying to purchase. Now there was something which was quite incredible, and that's I talk about it very shortly. In Priene, which is an area in Turkey. It's an ancient site, and it is like a tabletop hill. And on the foot of this hill, there is an incredible temple. So when I was there, the team, again from Siemens, sponsored from Siemens, the archaeologists were there and doing their digs. And I just happened to travel with a Turkish lady who was brilliantly translating. And without that, I would have been lost. So we approached some people, and because my father told me from a specific artifact which was found in Priene. So then I thought, okay, that was the main reason for me to travel to Turkey and to see what the true story about it is. So when we arrived, we kind of tried to find someone or anybody who would have some form of connection to the archaeology team, and we found someone which was working in the nearby cafe, which was on the foothill of this ancient site. And this cafe was a typical Turkish cafe, an open air cafe. So there was this young guy, and he was actively he was employed previously by the archaeologists. So and he told us from a object or some form of an artifact which they unearthed, but it wasn't just a coincidence. So Sabine was one of the leading archaeologists, and I believe, I'm not 100% sure if it was still under Helmut, what was his name again? Very famous archaeologist. I'm sorry, I've forgotten his name for a second. But so the team was purposely searching in one specific area without even having any lead to what they would find. And they found this incredible object, which was made of some form of a black, could be a glass, could be something, a stone, but it was glass-like. And when they unearthed it, and it had carvings on it, so that he made a drawing and stuff. And I was it was quite incredible, because this was exactly what my father had purchased previously. So there were two other objects which were exactly the same, just from out of a different material.
Wow.
So, and it was never documented. It was never publicly made known that they found it. It was within 6 hours being transported out of this country, out of Turkey, to, I believe it was Berlin in Germany. So, and that was all information which we gathered there. So then we had, of course, a lead, and I thought, okay, now we want to know more. And we did, but we returned the next day, and that is a true story. We returned the next day, and the cafe was closed.
Of course.
That shut the whole cafe. So we didn't know where the boy lived or any. So we found then our friends, which my Turkish friends contacted, who were living in the area. They found out where he was. So he lived in a remote village. So we went to the village, and then he continued to tell us about Haran. Now Haran is a different story, and that was something my dad was telling me about. Göbekli Tepe, right? One of the most incredible sites in Turkey.
What? Sorry, what was it called?
Göbekli Tepe.
Göbekli Tepe. Okay, because I'm looking at stuff as you're talking, and I've just found Helmut Brandl.
No, it's Helmut Schmidt, actually. That's him.
Right. Okay. Well, we can't rely on Wikipedia and all that.
So, but going back to what was that last?
Okay. So what was the name of that place you've just said in Turkey again?
The last one I just mentioned was Göbekli Tepe. Is one of the most incredible sites, and the probably oldest site known to archaeology.
Right. Can you spell that, Alex, please?
You're asking someone who's highly dyslexic, so I try.
Spell it.
Yeah.
It's G-O-B.
Yeah.
E-K.
Yeah.
L-E.
Yeah.
New word. T-E-P-E.
Okay.
Tepe.
Right,
Göbekli
okay.
Tepe.
That's a mouthful.
Lovely, thanks. Yeah. So it's the oldest site. Wow. Wow.
Incredible site, and it's only 5% have been unearthed from these temples, and there are the most incredible. I was there in 2004 when you still had access to this to the temple site. It took us a long journey to go from one end to another from in Turkey, and it was in that time. There were quite a few unrests as well in the area, because it's quite close to Iran-Iraq border. So, but it was, see, my mom, she was originally, her family, not herself, she came from Urfa, which is actually old Sumerian territory. So, and that's where the temple is.
Wow. But you can see why any Mason would love to have an architect, like an artifact that's from there. Imagine the sacred, potent energy, especially if only 5%'s been discovered. And isn't it interesting that over the last kind of 2 years, there's been a lot of earthquakes and a lot of disturbances in Turkey specifically as well?
Absolutely. And there's not, see, talking from earthquakes and disasters, one of the artifacts which I had, and it might have been just a coincidence, but I had a sigil, which is like a tiny piece of paper which it has some form of a bound energy in it, which is very difficult to describe. It's like a secret language, and they're using also crystal powder very often to enhance the energy in it. So it had a very blue powder, which I believe was azurite, and then they sealed it all off. So it was one of the things which my father actually left to me, and I previously worked with it for safekeeping, because people were actually at some point chasing me and trying to get those objects off me. But that's a story. Yeah. So I was on a run quite a bit because of these kind of things. I also had a lodge book, which I don't have anymore for anybody who thinks so. I have given it away because it was very, very explosive and quite it contained all sorts of names and ritualistic information, so which is something you shouldn't just carry around. But this sigil, I found it should have been kept in a safe place. So a friend of mine, who's a very famous dowser, he made a connection to the Witchcraft Museum in Boscastle, of all places. And at the time, it was owned by someone who was not very involved in it. It previously was owned by actually a pupil of Aleister Crowley. So that was the founder of the Witchcraft Museum in Boscastle, right? And then I decided to bring it there for safekeeping, because he was quite a neutral person, and people I know who were also into the dowsing and all this, they were quite into healing, so it seemed to be all very kosher. So we then buried the sigil behind the Witchcraft Museum on the bank underneath some hawthorn tree for safekeeping in a tin box, like an old biscuit box, and probably about I don't know, 25, 30 centimeter deep. So, you know, not so shallow. So it was very set. Now, then I traveled to Turkey, and the most incredible part, what happened is there was a flood in Boscastle.
Okay. Yeah.
Do you remember the flood?
Vaguely. What year was that? What year
that was the same year. It was 2004.
2004.
I don't remember, but
yeah, so it was quite devastating. A whole bridge got washed away. Most of the buildings were completely flooded. It was like the end of the world. It was something which Boscastle or Cornwall never ever seen before. It was quite extreme. And so the guy from the Witchcraft Museum, I called him because I saw it in Turkey, in Istanbul, because I had to return to Istanbul, and that's where I saw it on TV, on the news in Turkey. And I thought, oh my God, this is where we just buried the sigil, right? So I called him and I said, what do you think? And he said, well, what do I think? There's nothing left of the museum in the first place. All the artifacts which were inside were completely destroyed. And I didn't know, or we don't know still, if the sigil is still there or not.
maybe, Alex, maybe that was the curse when you buried
it could have been. It could have been. But see, from my mind, you know, so I'm thinking, really, you know, could there be such extreme energy connected to this? It might be, you know, so I don't know, but it was an extreme coincidence if it wasn't connected. So it was quite incredible.
That's where my mind was going as she was telling the story. So that's it's.
Isn't it interesting, Mandy and Angie? We just did the interview with Harry Rhodes, and he also flooded like the half of Birmingham. So if he can do it with an etheric canon, there's no reason why this sigil couldn't have like etheric deep power in it. And it's like, to me, it actually sounds a bit benevolent. It sounds like it's washed away all of that witchcraft in the but who knows?
Yeah, that's what. That's how I'm looking at that. We had a massive flood in Madeira, and this is what's coming to my mind because I lived there for quite a few years, and I'm just wondering, you know, I mean, I know about weather manipulation now, so that was not an act of God, as they call it, you know. This was an act of harp, you know, the weather manipulation.
Well, just look what happened in Hawaii.
But exactly.
So I mean, that's just incredible. I mean, I'm not overly into conspiracies, but there are really definitely some footages there which are not normal. You know, that's not right.
So
you
if it was a witchcraft museum, that tells me that needed washing, cleansing, because
yes,
what
yeah,
is cleansing, you
yeah,
know.
yeah. It could be very well the case.
Yeah.
So it was just, the timing was just incredible.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, but coming back to Göbekli Tepe, so it was every time when we traveled and we tried to find out, something major happened. There was also, for the first time when we approached Priene, the first site I was talking about, where they unearthed this glass-like object. That was the first time ever that a UFO sighting, which happened at the same day and night, when in the night when we were there, when it got recorded and shown on Turkish television. Never happened before, because they were quite, what can I say, they didn't want to admit that anything like that was existing, right? So, and it was the first time ever that it was announced on television that there was a UFO sighting.
Wow.
Especially on that day. So, which was quite something. There was also a lot of cattle which had been found, which has been mutilated in the area just the night after. So,
Alex, is this the day of the flood?
No, that was previously. The flood came after I have been visiting the site in Haran.
Mm-hmm.
So that was, I can't remember what the month was, it's too long ago. But I went to Haran, and then I researched the area. I also found out that there was a big connection to the military at the time, because they tried to seal off the whole site. They found these chambers underneath the temple.
Wow.
And they didn't really excavate a lot of it, or they didn't really explain what those chambers were for. All I know is that later on, in later stage, they refilled those chambers. So the same, like there was a wishing tree just above the site, which actually the locals would go to for forever, and put their little ribbons on it, and would have like little celebrations there with their families. And when they did the excavation, by accident, they would bulldoze that tree, and it got destroyed. So there were all sorts of weird and wonderful things happening around the site. And now on the site, when you look at it now, they have a big dome over it, which actually stops the energy, in my opinion, stops the energy from working freely together with the star system, which they're aligned with.
Yeah.
So, yeah, so that was Göbekli Tepe. And then I returned to Istanbul, and that's when the flood happened. And that's when I saw it on television. So that was definitely something quite incredible. Coming back to the lodges, people are not really aware, coming back to the main issue here, that these lodges are operating right under our nose. For example, there is a lodge which had been known 18th century, 1840, no, it wasn't 1840, that was a folk lodge. There was a different one, which I made a note of, 18th century, I was right, yes. So, which is the Hellfire Club, right? That's something which many people heard about, and I think it's kind of a posh motorcycle club, but it isn't. It was a Victorian lodge. Again, most of the rich Victorian people from the London area would be a member of this lodge. And the founder was Francis Dashwood. So Francis Dashwood also owns a house which is owned, not anymore, of course he's dead, but there is a very famous abbey which is called Magna Abbey, which is right on the banks of the Thames. And that one, yes.
What was the abbey called again, Alex? The abbey?
Called Magmenham Abbey, which is MEDMENHAM, I think, Abbey.
Mad Menham. Yeah, that's about right, isn't it, Mad Men?
Yeah.
And that one is in West Wickham, I believe it was. Yeah.
My God. I wonder if what's
Oh,
the name who wrote all those books? Sounds like she was in that area, talking about the Dashwoods and the Wickhams.
Yeah, very famous. So and
Anyway.
there's also a church on top of the caves, which is not an ordinary church. If you go inside, you know it's not a normal church. It has the most incredible painting of the universe and lots of stars, and it's very ritualistic. And it has actually a chamber or a tunnel which goes from the church down. The church sits right on top of the caves, which goes down into the caves.
Wow.
That I know that for sure. So, and they have still, even today, well, I'm not sure if that is today, but when I was the last time there and investigated, which is now about 20 years, okay? It's 20 years back. So they still would have once a year, or was it twice a year, they would have a meeting inside the cave.
wow.
And when I arrived with my friends to do some research the first time, which was in 1987 or 8, I think, quite a long time ago, we were really on the track of someone who was known to be a puppet master. No, these puppet masters are not known like the Rothschild or something. These are people who are way above that, and you don't know even who they are. You would never know them. You would never see them coming up in public or anything. So, and this guy actually lived in the Francis Dashwood house, which is Madman Abbey on the side of the Thames. So when I came across this information, we had to tread really careful because we didn't want to stir up too much attention and put ourselves in danger. So I lived still in Germany at the time, so I took 4 of my friends along for support, and then we investigated. And so we first went actually to the Thames. We hired one of those boats, you could have, like a little motorboat at that time. I don't know if you still can do that. And then we kind of went down the Thames, and we were looking for the Dashwood house. And after 20 minutes or so, we came to the point where we saw the tower, because there is is a tower from the Abbey, but it's not really known as a church or so. It's quite a strange thing, because people who know about that site and people who go there know that there are, again, some facilities underground the building. But if you research, then nothing is known about it.
Yeah, of course.
So the neighbor at the site, I'm sorry, I'm jumping a little bit, so I hope you all
No, it's making perfect sense, please. Yeah.
So the neighbor at the time who lived in the house next door, which was quite a grand house as well, he stopped us and he said, "How did you get in?" And I said, "What do you mean? How did you get in? We just got in." Oh, I forgot to say, we took the boat back when we knew where it was, and then took the car over, and then we just drove into the estate, right? Then he said, "Usually the gates are closed, so you can't just come in. So I'm surprised that the gates are open." That maybe has to do because he just moved on that particular day when we arrived. The neighbor was packing up everything and moving. And then he said to us, "As I'm moving, I tell you what's going on here." And that again,
Wow.
one of those coincidences. And then he took us into the garden, to his garden area, where we could overlook the Dashwood house. And then he told us who owned it. He told us what is going on. He said that they have meetings there as well once a year, and then they take off in groups to go to the Dashwood caves, where they also have other meetings.
Fuck's sake.
So,
Wow.
yeah, and he said he was an architect, German. Can you believe it? A
Oh, yeah.
German guy. So I was quite surprised. And he said that this guy is really floating in like the high society, and he's totally untouchable. So then I was quite cocky. So I thought, okay, so let's just see if we can meet him, right? I was quite naive in that time. So I said to my friends, let's just see if we can, under the let's pretend we are journalists and we are interested in the architecture, because it was a very grand house. And so we went over, and then we got immediately stopped by one of his bull terriers, which was a gardener. And he said, who are you? What are you doing here? And all this. And then we tried, to sell our story, but it didn't work really. So, and then he said, if you would like to make an appointment with whoever owns this house, then we need to show our passports, and then he would take a copy of it, and then they would get in touch.
Oh my God.
Yeah, of course we didn't do that.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So then we left, but we did try and research, and there wasn't internet, of course, so we had to do our research differently. But when I returned, and that's what I want to say, before we actually went to the Dashwood house, I had a really weird experience, and I don't know if it was a dream or some form of out-of-body experience, but I've been drawn into this place, which was underneath the Abbey, the place where we ended up researching, the Dashwood house. So, and in that time, I got a name, which, you know what a motto is? A motto is a kind of a secret name for a person in a lodge.
A motto, M-O-T-O.
Okay.
I can't translate it really. They wouldn't have their normal names. They would have names like Frater something,
Yeah.
So,
Very nice.
my father was known, for example, as Frater Daniel. Okay, so Frater Daniel that was his motto. So everybody involved in this kind of lodge world has this kind of names.
Yeah.
And so one of these names was given to me in this experience, and that was the name of the person who was the architect, right? When I came back to while I'm telling you this is quite important. When I came back to Germany, someone has posted a postcard, which was in my post box. And the only thing on that postcard written was his name, this motto. That was it.
Wow.
And how on earth could, that was incredible. So I got always this kind of shivering things, this truth to some of the, sorry.
The postmark and everything was obliterated.
Oh yes, and I couldn't see the postmark because something like that happened actually 3 times. But always the post stamp, you couldn't really see where exactly it came from. I knew it was coming from a Munich area, but I couldn't see where exactly. So because some of the letters of the numbers were smudged over. So
And it was the nickname of this guy.
it was his motto. His motto is like is it a pseudonym? What do you say?
It is. Is it like a nickname? Like
it is a bit like a
Nickname. Yeah, we call
Angie, it was the nickname of his father.
Right, so that's what I wasn't sure about.
No. It wasn't the nickname of it wasn't my father's name.
No, I didn't catch that.
It was his name.
Him, that guy, the one who didn't get in to see. That's how I read it. Yeah,
because that just made me shiver myself.
Yeah.
So it's a very, very powerful.
Yeah. So and then I thought that was the end of it. So we then wanted to just see the Dashwood caves, which were quite famous, in itself. So I thought, okay, let's just do a tour and see what the energy is like. So I have to just have a bit of tea here. And so we went to the Dashwood Caves, and guess what?
Go on.
They were taking, there was a big lorry there, and they were putting all, well, not hundreds, but a lot of these long benches. They were carrying all the benches inside the caves.
Oh,
Something was happening right there, you know, probably the night or maybe the next day. I don't know. I can't remember exactly how it was. But even the woman who owned the cafe next to the Dashwood Caves, she didn't know. She was fairly new at the time. She just taken over the cafe because we had a little chat with her. And even she was completely stunned because she had been asked to close the cafe. And no things given. So, and they were very adamant that she just closes the cafe and go home. So, and then all the benches got carried in, and obviously they had their meeting there. So on arrival, when we came, I spotted a car there, and it was not a particular Porsche car, it was a Mercedes, a dark Mercedes. And within that Mercedes, there was a driver, so like a chauffeur, and someone sitting in the back. And when the window, I forgot, see, I'm so sorry, I forgot to
Don't worry.
when I had this experience, I saw him in human form already. So I knew what he would look like. And when I looked into the car, it was him sitting in the car who was the architect, right? So, and then after that experience, I thought we have to tread a little bit careful because we made contact, right? So, and that is a true story as well. So when we drove, then afterwards we drove to Boscastle, and we were all sitting in the same car, and we were followed halfway to Boscastle by a different car. And we are not the kind of people who would imagine things, you know. So you know when you followed, and so at some point they just disappeared. But it was then when I realized maybe we have to be a little bit careful. And when I returned to Germany, I had a meeting actually with a younger magician who knew the old type magicians, and he said, you have to tread more silently because how did he say that? He said, the drums of the OTO are very loud. So, which means in translation, you're making noise, right? So,
wow.
So then, but then I see when I get curious about something, I want to know more. So, and we tried to find out more about this guy, this architect. It was very, very difficult. I did get contacted by someone. See, there is so many links to so many people. There was a place in, you probably know it. It's a witchery in Edinburgh. The witchery is like it's a restaurant, and so I think Alistair Crowley stayed in above. They're renting out rooms and stuff. So it got famous because he stayed there. So it's been a restaurant for quite some time. I don't know if it still exists. I was there again in the late 80s. But behind the witchery, there was a wax museum.
Oh
and that wax museum as well was, again, a lodge member from this folk lodge. So officially, this lodge has been dissolved in 1932 or something, but it never did. They're still operating. Even today, they are still around.
Wow.
And they have connections. For example, they had connection to the P2 Lodge, a notorious lodge in Italy. Don't know if you know that one.
No.
This one got blown up, literally, almost, by the Italian government because of the pedophilic rings they had. So they needed to end it because it was getting too many people were on their track, and too many things happened. It was again, the P2 consisted of a lot of bankers, lawyers, doctors, you know, so people who are in very high places in the society. And the two lodge was around for a very long time. I think they're still existing. Then we have also groups in America, for example, Anton LaVey. Don't know if you heard that name.
Isn't he the priest of Satan or something like that? The priest of Satan.
Exactly. So he has a huge fellowship. Then there's we call it in German Telema Lodge, which is also a lodge which was founded originally by Aleister Crowley. There are so many of them. There's so many. Ordo Templi Orientis, most of them are Saturn lodges, and they're still all operating. The only difference is now that the new people, they are much more greedy. They don't have any loyalty to each other, so they like to, if they do, they're very power hungry. And
so like the protection of the brotherhood is getting weaker in a sense. They're not protecting their fellow brothers anymore. It's just becoming a lot more egoic.
Absolutely.
Wow.
So everybody has a huge ego. They all want the biggest power, the biggest status, within the lodge. Some of the lodges are not operating in the ranks like the Freemasons. You don't have necessary grandmasters carrying the 33rd degree title. So some of them just have members, like the 99 Lodge or the Fog Lodge. They have 99 members, and the 100th member is a demon. So once every 3 years, all the members of this group, they have to, there's a lottery, right? So someone has to draw a ball, which is obviously a different color. So, and then this particular person has to be sacrificed. So that it happened. Yeah, it's very heavy stuff. And and they have something which is called a tepaphone in that time. Today they will have something completely different in place. But the tepaphone was a disc, and they would operate that disc with the power of the mind. So that disc then would create some form of a frequency which was targeting this specific person who was the person to be offered. Because we all have different frequencies, and because there were very gifted people working in that lodge, they would know exactly what frequency you were about, and then they would just kill you that way, usually with a heart attack. So, and that is definitely how they did it, once every 3 years.
It's crazy, Alex. So they go in knowingly that one day they're going to pick a ball and it could be them.
And they could die, yeah. Like you sign up knowing I might die by joining this lodge.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Russian roulette.
Yeah,
Isn't
it is like Russian roulette. Yes.
Something
So,
wrong. There's got to be something wrong with them.
And there's only 99 allowed, so they can't grow. And is that 99 per lodge or 99 for globally for that lodge?
There was only one lodge ever known. Yes.
Oh.
And the 100th member is the demon.
Yeah, no.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. So yes. So that is a tradition, but you shouldn't forget that lodge is just the center lodge, right? So then you have other lodges which are the umbrella lodge, which spreads out in different places. So many of the lodges, even though they would be officially not connected, they are connected. Many of the members, for example, who are in one lodge would be also a member of another lodge. So it's never that clean cut, so they be going and members of
a network. It's like a network.
That 99, right? Yeah. That song just came into my head, 99 red balloons.
Yeah, yes. Yeah, that's true.
So it's kind of like that's like a network, yeah?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, exactly. So, and it's a bit like Templars and the Illuminati and the Freemasons. So it's never just one group. It kind of spreads out. And they are globally known, so they have seats in every single city and every country. So the Freemasons as such as well anyway. So they're like a charity group, right? And then if you go through the closed doors, and some groups are really not connected to anything bad or evil at all. You know, they're just there as a front, like the mafia has an ice cream parlor, right? So, and then when you go and be a member, then you have to prove yourself that you're actually trustworthy. So it's not like they instantly draw you into this kind of deep magical kind of circle. So only if you tick certain criteria, and you have to have knowledge as well. So it's not just for anybody who never educated themselves, right? So they have an extensive library like the Vatican, which they have books we would never see in our lifetime, which contains knowledge from, again, from places which were Sumerian or any kind of places where archaeology was unearthing some information which was kept on tablets. So very often, that's why, see, the whole archaeology, the whole history, there are so many lies, and they try to keep us in that specific spot so that we don't learn too much about ourselves, our ability.
Sounds like they're in control of all of that.
Absolutely. The dumber we are, the better, you know. So, and they're the ones, I mean, we see that like 100 years ago, whenever, so there people couldn't, for example, study medicine unless you would be coming from a very wealthy family, right? So it was not normal for someone who wouldn't have any money, like a farmer, for example, to study medicine. So these are all restrictions which in society are still in place, actually.
Yeah.
It's just under a different logo, right? So they're still doing exactly the same. In fact, the plan, which was around thousands of years ago, still applies today. The only thing is that the time have changed a little bit and the tools are different, but it's still the same plan.
Yeah, of course. So, I mean, you can see now why they've, you know, indoctrinated people to believe that this is all taboo. It's bullshit voodoo to get us off the track all the time. These bastards are, you know, practicing it.
Of course, it's the best thing if someone gets close to the truth to discredit this person.
Yes.
And I found that out myself. I had a big run-in when I was approached in Scotland. I think I told you from what happened to me in Scotland, I think on the last show, when I was approached by the Ferguson family, who are quite deeply involved in this, you know, and nobody knows about it. And if you would talk to any Scottish person in the area, they would just look at you and think, you're crazy. You know, they have nothing to do with this.
Can you touch on that again? The Ferguson family, because it's been quite a few weeks since we had you on. Do you want to touch on that again briefly, if you can, about the Ferguson family?
Yes, it's the Invercold house, which is just very close to the Balmoral estate.
Okay.
Close to Balmoral.
Yeah. So, and I've been invited to come onto the estate. At the time, I was looking for investments. That is true, but I wasn't quite sure, you know, what I would purchase, a house or whatever. So, and they invited me under the well, first of all, the person I was with at the time, her family came from a Freemason background. So
right.
I didn't know that at the time at all. I had no idea. However, so she was a bridging tool, and then she kind of made the arrangements to see Lord Ferguson, and then we had a meeting. His son was there as well. He was actually quite a nice guy, completely different, but he didn't want to do, and it had nothing to do with the castle. You see, he lived on the estate, but just in a cottage, and so we had a good chat, and then he told me from the estate, and they needed to have someone who's taking over the castle, and there was a finance plan in place to run wedding venues and all this kind of stuff. So it was quite an attractive financial proposition, and the house was very beautiful castle, which they call house, but it needed some repair. So he wanted a certain amount of fund to come into the castle, so to repair the roof at the time. And I was invited, so, and then he showed me the castle, and we went through all the rooms and stuff. Quite interesting. Some of the memorabilia which are kept in this castle, for example, a copy of the Doomsday Book.
Wow.
And an artifact which supposedly came from the Apollo 11.
Wow.
And he made a strange remark, because see, at that time I believed still people landed on the moon and stuff, and he said, well, if you believe in the story that it actually ever got to the moon. So there was some really strange things which happened. But so then he showed me what was known as the silver room, and he said, if you take the castle on, all I want you to do is once a year we have a meeting here in this castle, and you have the responsibility of the silver room. So you need to join us, and then you will have the key to the silver room, and you put all the artifacts and all the stuff which is in the silver room. You set it all up in a special room where we have the meeting, and that was it. So, but he didn't want to have anybody who was not associated with the knowledge of the lodge, or because of the background of my father. So I was a perfect candidate. So, and but I wasn't interested in it, because soon as I clocked what it was, that this was actually the high seat of the Scottish Freemasons, which are notoriously known to be a lot more aggressive than the guys from London. So I thought, I need to get out of here. So then I said, a couple of days later, I called him and I said, oh, thank you very much for the offer, but no. And he said, oh, if it is the money, we can arrange an overdraft with your bank immediately. So I said, no, it's nothing to do with it. So, yes. So they're all working together, you know, so there was no doubt. And then I decided, as I said, thank you, not for me. At that time, I was doing my second profession, which I was known as a sculptor. That was my passion in life. So next to being a doctor, I studied art as well.
Alex, can
yes.
you do that in a minute? But do you think that woman was sent in your life just to get you to that point in Scotland?
Definitely. Nothing is by chance. Nothing.
I had to say that then.
Nothing is by chance, absolutely.
Yeah, nothing is by chance.
She disappeared just as quickly as she came.
Which she came.
So,
okay.
Yeah, absolutely. So when I then decided to,
he's waiting for me to disappear, but I'm not going anywhere.
Bless you, Vivian.
He's stuck with this one. Lancaster and Big Gom.
So yeah, when I turned their generous offer down, I just won the Royal Scottish Arts, the Royal Scottish Award, Academy Award, sorry, for with the sculpture, and it was quite a nice surprise for me, and I worked quite hard for this. And then after I had the press who came to take some pictures and stuff, and after that,
what did you sculpt?
In stone.
Wow.
Yeah, so I used alabaster, marble, serpentine, all sorts of different stones.
Tell them about the commission for Balmoral.
Oh, I did a commission, yeah, for the Queen. I forgot to. Yeah, I did a commission, and it was a commission which was dedicated to her mum, to the Queen Mother, and the theme was mother and child. Now, I have to say, I'm sorry, I'm not a royalist. If I offend anybody, then I'm very sorry. But so I thought that could be quite funny. So I set out to find the perfect stone, and the company I was working with was sitting in Germany, and they had these amazing stones from all over the world. So they had a big, huge black basalt. And they said it sits on top of other stones and it looks really eerie, and they wanted to get shot of it. So I made them an offer, and I got the stone. It was about 3.5 tons heavy, so
Wow.
it got shipped over and transported to my house, which was quite difficult because the Balmoral Bridge, the Braemar Bridge, was too Ballater Bridge was too Crassy Bridge was too small, so it couldn't take the
weight.
weight of the lorry, so he had to go all the way around through the Gordon estate. Anyway, so then they arrived and I did the sculpture, and it was really looked like an angel because it looked like a crouched person and big wings appearing. So what I saw, I just kind of sculpted it. And then, Grace Jones.
Yeah.
Yeah. It looked like Grace Jones being pregnant with wings.
Right, okay. Okay.
It
So-
didn't go down well, did it?
It didn't go down well at all. A black angel and being pregnant, that was just like, but because it was publicly released, so she couldn't really say anything. I never seen that piece anywhere in the garden. I think she got
Yeah.
shot. But yeah, so that was my connection I had with them. We kind of had always a bit because I lived so close to them, I never quite understood why I should wait when she would drive over the bridge. So we very often in the middle of the Classic Bridge, kind of, on a Sunday, I think I had a little demon in my ear, which would say, "Come on, go to the shop now." So, and then would always coincide with the church finished, and then she would drive, and we would always meet at the bridge. So
The Queen.
yes, yeah. So and then I had to back up, of course, but she was always smiling. She came very often actually to see my horse, who was a fell pony. I had a fell pony stallion,
Do they still have?
and they still have, yeah, which was given to Camilla and what's his name? Charles. Forgot what his name. As a wedding gift. So yeah. So we were quite close in that estate, because we were neighbors. And so she was using my driveway, because it was security reasons that I couldn't put gate on my house and stuff like that. But anyway, coming back to the estate, after it all happened, and that's why I'm telling you the connection with the Queen, only because the press then fabricated that story that I had this incredible link to the Queen, and we would have satanic rituals behind my house in the forest. I mean, come on, how weird is that?
And you fathered about 50 children.
And oh yes, and I fathered obviously, most of the children from both villages. So there were all sorts. I mean, there was every single day something in the paper, and it was just horrendous. It was funny at first. First, I thought it was quite amusing, but then when you have reporters on your door, and they camped out at the Lochnagar distillery, and you have them there every day, and they're restricting your freedom because you don't want to leave the house because they would just chase you. My friends got chased. It was just coming to the point where it was really quite intimidating. Let's say that.
Who do you think put the media up to that? Because we know the media are the propaganda machine. Who do you think might have been behind that?
I think it was them. I think it was the lodge who had
The 99.
No, that was at the time the Freemasons from Scotland.
The Scottish, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
So because I did say I didn't agree to be a part of it. So if you don't, and I knew already too much in that time anyway. So they wanted to destroy me. So they destroyed literally my career within a week.
Yeah.
Nobody would touch my sculptures. Nobody would even talk to me. I mean,
Wow.
it was just ridiculous. Yeah. That even didn't bother me. What did bother me that they then started to come to my house in the night, and it was one particular night which I remember, and I slept above my studio. There was a little flat, and when I was working a lot for a deadline for a gallery, I would just sleep on top in that little flat. So I had horses at the time as well. So I was looking from the flat into the woodland, and that particular night, for some reason, I couldn't sleep. So when I went over to the window, I could see torchlights coming from the forest towards my studio.
That's nasty. Wow.
Yeah. So then
How many were there?
there were six of them. So that's what I could see. There might have been more, but I could count 6 lights. And that's when my friend said, you know, I should go. And there was something inside me which was like a knowing, if I wouldn't leave, I would probably not leave alive. That was the first time that I really was worried about my safety.
Wow.
Yeah.
So I grabbed a few things and I left. I had already prepared, strangely, a bag because I was due to travel to the other side of the country. So I just grabbed my car, the bag, and I left. I contacted on the way my uncle, which was from Germany. Now that's another very strange story, which I'm not going to be talking about it, all of it, because it would take too long. But I thought he was a safe haven. So when I arrived in Germany, I thought I would get a break and then could think about what my next move is. So I had the horses there, and all sorts of things, you know, went through my head, and I needed to trust the people which I left behind to take care of that. And however, so when I was in Germany, I stayed in one of his properties, which he had an empty flat, so that was fine. And then I learned the next day when we had a chat, and he said, "Oh, you stay in Germany, and you know, just be safe and all that." So while I said, "Oh, can I use your printer because I needed to print something out?" And I went over to his desk, and when I went over to his desk, I saw a piece of paper, which was a copy of a bank transfer, where he was paid from Scotland.
Oh my God.
And I thought, no, that can't be right. So, and then a friend of his, he was really my savior. He was not so keen on my uncle. He was quite a rough diamond. He was a builder, and he did a lot of work for my uncle. But he put me aside and he said, "You need to get out of here," because he works together with them. They pay every month. So, and then he gave me an address from Spain, and he said, "I have 2 people there which are very good friends of mine, and you would be safe there." So I decided, okay, off to Spain, right? So, and when I was in Spain, I totally went off radar. I lived in a small finca, and I had still some form of money which was tying me over, but I needed to work. So I started to work with horses over there because, you know, horses are my passion as well. So I did a lot of horse riding, and I did do some work there, but I knew it wasn't for long anyway. So then this Turkish woman, which was a friend of this builder guy, contacted me, and she said, and she was quite a spiritual person, and she said, "You need to go to Turkey because you need to find out really what happened." And it was strange because it was in my head for such a long time that I would go to Turkey to find out about the artifacts which my father has purchased. And that's how it all came together, that I then ended up in Turkey.
Wow.
So that's the next destination. Yeah. So yeah, it was quite tough. Then eventually, in Turkey, that was another thing. They even have people in Turkey because I had to go to hospital in Turkey, and I was quite poorly at some time. Everything was just catching up with me. It was a big point in life where I needed really to think what I'm going to do next. And I ended up in a hospital, and this doctor, who was also a member of this lodge, I know it sounds almost
Insane.
unbelievable, but he tried so hard to keep me in Istanbul. That was in Istanbul. So he tried everything, and he said, look, you can have a house here. I can put you in touch with this really famous sculptor in Turkey. And we went over to see him as well. And, all this kind of, I mean, they really try very hard. If they want something from you, there's almost nothing they wouldn't do to lure you in. And because I was still recovering, I wasn't in a good space. And then there came the point when frictions kind of came along, and I started to get an infection. And I just thought, if I don't leave this country soon, then I'll probably never leave this country, because there's just too much going on here. I'm too watched and everything. So I decided to come back to Britain. But I didn't make it all the way first, because I collapsed in Germany because I needed to have another surgery. So then when I recovered enough, I went back to Britain. So then I kept my head low for many years. But I did a lot of research within that time, and a lot of things completely made sense. And I came across something really interesting. So now in my research, I always came across, especially in Turkey, I found this site in Priene, and there was this incredible wheel carved out of stone. And it looked like exactly like the inside of the Large Hadron Collider.
Oh.
It was almost like a copy. And then I researched, and there were a few of those sculptures dotted around on this world. So in Mexico, Peru, I think, and somewhere else. So, and then I thought maybe there was a reason that Siemens was involved in all those archaeological digs in the first place. And it had. So I know that sounds really unbelievable in a way, but all the research, everything, all the knowledge they have comes back to one point, which I researched, for so many years. And I always came back to the same conclusion. They were hunting what is known also in science as the God particle. The aim was to redesign or create a matrix which could overlay the natural matrix, so that they could artificially create a reality to be in a simulation.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, does that make sense? And that's why very often ancient sites have like a coding, like the Rosslyn Chapel, as well. So there are many churches which carry these codes, and they're all connected to certain frequencies. So if you would connect all the ancient sites, then because they're usually created on certain power points, not just ley lines, we also have water lines, and we have also many of them are stargates as well. They're aligned with certain constellations. So they knew all about it, of course, but they didn't want us to know, because as humans, if we would know our true potential, which we could achieve if we would be just connected to the true frequencies which are surrounding us, we would have incredible potential, each one of us.
Yeah.
They don't want us to have that knowledge, because then we would lose not only the fear, but also, as in ancient times, we would worship certain individuals almost like gods. Today, or in the past, that would be like the film stars and pop stars and all this. And they're all very often, as you know, coming from a very ritualistic background.
Yeah.
And they're using the same tools. So it all kind of makes sense once you do not connect all the dots. It makes sense. But there is a way how you can stop this from happening. There's a way how we can break through this matrix and immediately connect with the pure source again. Most people are not really aware of that, and it is not that easy to do in a way, but once you tap into the right frequencies, then all the sides can be reconnected to each other again in its original frequency.
Wow.
And that was something which my father told me, many, many years ago. And he said, that's what they're scared about. See, my father was very involved in it, but there was an element in him which I would say he actually was almost on the good side, because he in the end decided to betray them.
Yes, Father.
Yeah. So and that's why he told me all this stuff. He said,
Wow.
you need to find this, you need to find the right people to work together, so, and that's what we started to do. And we started to do it with a certain supplement which you just lately kind of brought onto the market. But it's not about the money. This is really just purely to see how many people share their experiences with that. For me, it was the connection of 3 elements. And if you connect those 3 elements, you can change something within yourself.
Right.
Yeah.
This is where your fabulous product comes into play as well, Alex, is the aqua.
Yes, that is just the first step.
Yeah.
So that is the first step, because we didn't know if it would work at all, to be honest. We were just it was being on the track and thinking, can this be for real? Is there really something about these elements, if you would fuse them, could that really work and put us in a state of mind where we could heal ourselves and reconnect with nature and be connected to each other again? So and when we started to give it to people, then we had quite incredible feedback from it. So where we it wasn't just about the healing, the physical healing. It was also to do with the non-physical side.
The spiritual, yeah.
The spiritual side, exactly. So, and many people, when they had the first experience, they would break down in tears, or they would be, very joyful for a day, and then they would be totally exhausted. It was just all sorts of different, very emotional kind of connections. But one thing was clear to me. So that is just the first step. We're working on more. We're working also on something which is like a resonance, which we translated from Aquan into a sound, and we started to apply it to ancient sites.
Wow.
So now that is something we can do this in a later program, because we're not quite ready yet to show it. But we have seen that there is like a veil.
Yeah.
And when we apply that frequency to each stone of an ancient site, for example, we have a stone circle, and we went to 2 sites just a few days ago to experiment. And each of the stones had an incredible memory, like water. Also an incredible memory of people who came to the site and did their thing. Now, for stones, and unless you have an extremely evil energy, let's say, the stones see it just as energy, right? So it doesn't really matter that you have a pagan or a Christian or whatever it is. So long the intention is good, the energy is beneficial for the stones, and it keeps the stone circles alive as well, because they need that interaction, that resonance, because otherwise the vibration goes down quite a lot. And it's still there in the grounds, but it needs that kind of catalyst. So, and when we started to experiment with it and communicate, it's a bit like when you have a dolphin and you would like to communicate with the dolphin, and you show a dolphin a ball and you repeat it, and the dolphin would make a sound to identify the ball or encourage you to play with the ball. Then scientists found out when they repeated that with different dolphins, it was always the same sound. So they could establish some form of a language between the dolphin and the human, right? So, and that kind of applies to the stones as well, because they are actually living organisms in a way, you know, so they are living. And so they have an incredible memory, and they are very able to communicate with us. When you're very sensitive and you put your hands on a stone, then very often people get all sorts of visions, or they get all sorts of energies. It depends really, you know, what you are absorbing from the stones, or what the stone maybe is able to give you. So
So, Alex, are you saying that the like the lodges globally, their main aim obviously has been to create this false matrix for us to live in, this illusion? And in a way, could they be going to these ritualistic stone places and they're trying to program the stones to negativity instead of positivity, something like that?
Absolutely, yeah, that's what I did for many, many years. But look at all the churches, for example. Many of them are set on to very sacred sites and really important sites. And many of them are not there to enhance, unfortunately, the energy. Many of them are there to, I wouldn't say suffocate, but maybe to redirect the energies for their own purpose.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Alex, while we're talking about Aquan, have you got like a bottle that we could show the viewers at home?
I might have.
Obviously, we'll put up links. We did put a link the last time in the Magna Carta group for the Magna Carta Special.
Assistant.
Beautiful.
Yeah, that's Aquan. I don't know if you can see that. Oops, there's my bird as well. So that's Aquan, and we have.
You're a bird. How rude.
I just picked this up because I was waiting for a client, and we have a concentrate as well, and that's actually the one we are using in our experiments as well. And so that's a concentrate there.
Ah, nice. Wow.
This one is about 30 times stronger than the original Aquan water. So the Aquan water is to prime your system, and then you use the concentrate to follow up. However long, it depends really what you're looking for, what you want to use it for. So some people use it to get better if they have any medical condition. We can't make any claims, of course. But we can say that it contains frankincense, myrrh, and gold.
I love that. I love that about your product, Alex. It's fantastic.
And
right there.
It tastes lovely. I could actually drink a whole bottle, to be honest with you. I really like the taste.
I mean, I've been using the first drops that you did, you know, but I use it as eyes drops, and Alex, they're fantastic. And just to the audience out there, get some. They're amazing, especially with on these computers, and you know, all your eyes go dry and everything. I find them incredible, and it is an anti-inflammatory. It works for me.
Yes.
I mean, like Mandy and I, not the type of people that are took in. There's that many products out there, especially in the truth movement now, and you know, a lot. I'm sure they're great and all that, but we felt compelled to buy your product when we met you in Bournemouth.
I love it,
and it is amazing. And Alex, I wanted to try this for my skin. I've got what the medical profession call vitiligo, and while I was on the Aquan, it was incredible that the skin pigment was coming back, but then I ran out. Yeah,
I know.
You know the story behind that.
I sent you some more. Don't worry about it. We had actually because we had this enormous thing for the last 2 weeks where we actually given Aquan away just against the postage and a small donation of £5. So just to make it accessible for so many people as possible.
Well, all this comes back, I'll be a great advert for you. this is why Aaron wanted to contact you, because he wanted a little bottle. That's
one of the bottles which I have for him. So
he's got the same, you see.
Yeah, right. I know. He did use it, and he was so grateful because he said it worked.
Coming back, worked, It's incredible.
We had so many amazing people calling us and putting reviews on, and many of the things I wasn't even aware that it would work so quickly. I mean, coming from a medical background myself, right? So I expected it to take a little while, but we had some people who had absolute incredible
The guy with psoriasis.
yeah, the psoriasis. There was someone who had psoriasis, and in the most amazing, I mean, places. You know, the whole arm was full of psoriasis, and he applied it one time, and his whole hand healed up immediately. I mean, that's I never ever seen anything like it. So I feel that even so, I have kind of fused all the elements here together, that I was just channeling something, you know, which needed to come through. And it was the first time when we tasted it, when we tried it ourselves. It was amazing. It was just almost like an out-of-body experience. It was something happening within us, emotionally and physically. I cannot even describe it, but it's yeah. So this is just the beginning of the journey. We did
Alex, I mean, I absolutely, for anyone out there, you need to check out Alex's website. We will put it, Indigo will put it on at the end. I do urge people to go and have a look. And then Alex did us a nice little code bundle for the Magna Carta group the last time, but I'll put that up again into the Magna Carta. So it's the Magna Carta 1215, Article 61 on Telegram. So I'll put those into the group.
Okay, perfect.
And share into your group as well. But I absolutely rate your project, Alex. You know, the first time I met you, I just thought, what a lovely person you were, a lovely man, and Vivian as well at Runnymede. And I just think you're two wonderful, special people.
I think
We both you are wonderful.
When we met, I felt immediately kind of, you know, I felt so close to both, you know, so it was quite nice. We had that instant kind of click. Absolutely. And that's what this is all about. And this is also what they don't have.